Welcome to the Growing Up Bananas podcast, where we dissect the perks and tribulations of being bananas.
It's hard being yellow when I feel so white.
My name is Ethan. Kev is sitting next to me once again, and in many ways, I'm sitting next to him. What do we have in store for today?
Today we are discussing all matters involving chopsticks. We will be joined by a very special guest, Marissa, or at xMarissaJ on Instagram, to get an insight into her journey so far.
This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Be sure to check out the podcast of the month, Bev's Video Kingdom, link in the description. So when it comes to chopsticks, Kev, there's really three main categories that have to be spoken about or discussed. The first one is our first use, so who taught us. Second is the correct technique, and there are wrong techniques. And the last one is when chopsticks can actually be beneficial or not.
Compared to fork and spoon.
Yeah, or even hands.
Yeah, true.
Hands are a pretty good device.
True.
For you then, can you remember when you first used chopsticks?
Take me back now. I would say it'd be pretty close after my mom stopped spoon feeding me. She would have just given me a pair of chopsticks and away I go.
Yeah, probably sounds about right. Was it to try and preserve the Asian culture?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's probably just what we had on hand once we, I think when they migrated from Malaysia.
I remember when I first started using it, I was probably 7 or 8. I don't remember my parents ever teaching me, but we were at a restaurant and my uncle sort of pulled me aside and said, this isn't on anymore.
This is not
You
acceptable.
need to start using some chopsticks. So he forced me that day, then and there, to start using chopsticks. So yeah, that was my early introduction into it all. The next part then, the most important one to discuss is technique.
So funny you bring that up. Got some chopsticks right here. And in my opinion, the correct technique is holding the bottom one at the sort of the base of your thumb and then pinning it to the middle finger, the top of the middle finger, and then you're holding the top one like a pen, and it gives you a lot of power and a lot of control.
What are the advantages of that? Like you say, more control. You can obviously pick up some heavier foods.
Yeah, you can definitely pick up. You get a lot of angles as well. It's really easy to pick up dumplings. You can also kind of make like a spoon shape and shovel food into your mouth.
Yeah, just a widely used technique. I've actually got a pair on me as well, which I like to carry around from time to time. And I'll show you the wrong technique, which is where you kind of crisscross it and you pick up in between. Obviously, the disadvantage there is you don't have that strength.
No.
You don't really have the dexterity either, because all you can do is that.
Yeah. You can only grip it really about not even an inch. Whereas if you look at that, look at the amount of width and power.
That's it. And then the last technique, which is commonly used, is just the old stab.
Stabbing technique.
So good for dumplings. Bowls, I guess, as well.
Fair.
But obviously, you don't have the other benefits of the other techniques.
I guess on that note, I've actually been using them to, like scissors, to cut sushi. I've been eating tamago egg, as Marissa would know, quite a lot from Sushi Hub. Shout
so
out
good.
to them. And yeah, I just like to, because they come in like rectangular blocks, and I like to just slice them into bite-sized pieces.
Yeah, get another good use for chopsticks.
Yeah.
And then the last thing to cover is, obviously, when you go out to a restaurant, being an Asian man, you always get chopsticks offered at first instance.
Oh, definitely. Yep. I don't think I've ever been offered.
Only if you're with a white friend.
Even then, I still get off of the chopsticks.
Yeah, right. Well, that works.
Yeah.
So, trying to dissect different techniques for chopsticks. Which one's right, I don't know. But we definitely know which one works easier and better for people. So
Yeah, I mean, logically, I think it's still this one. But I'm happy to hear out otherwise.
And then really quickly, what about texture of chopsticks? So you've got, obviously, the metal ones, which is more of a Korean style. You've got the wooden ones, which probably more Japanese. And then the Chinese ones, you go to any of those dirty restaurants, and it's usually those plastic ones.
The off-white plastic
the ones that I
you got here.
just happen to have on me.
I firmly prefer wooden. I just like the texture of it. It's a lot of grip. They're not slippery. I think you brought up cleanliness, and I didn't think of that. I think when I go to a restaurant, I don't prefer wood. Prefer metal or plastic, but at home I prefer wood.
Yep. Most people do. Yeah, look, that's probably it.
I think that was it.
Let's get Marissa on, get her opinion on the chopsticks as well. She's going to give us some really good insights into her life, a very hardworking and high-achieving woman. You got any you're looking to get from that?
Really looking forward to hearing about what made her into the woman that she is today and see what her goals are going forward into the future.
Let's do it. Before we get started, this episode is brought to you thanks to Ronin Grooming. If you're looking for a fresh cut and some quality chats, hit up Richard at Ronin Grooming, located at Wills Gym, McGregor, and give him a follow at roningrooming.au on Instagram. Let's get into it. So we're very fortunate to have Marissa or ex-Marissa J on Instagram join us today. Marissa is a traveler, scary good athlete, a creator of extreme content, lover of bubble tea, a very hardworking lady, and soon, if you hurt yourself, she will be able to heal you. Welcome, Marissa.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Thanks for coming. So I guess let's start off with a pretty simple question. Do you consider yourself a banana?
A banana. I suppose so. I guess bananas, like, you look Asian on the outside, but don't feel like you completely fit into Asian culture. And I feel like that's pretty, I don't know, maybe accurate. I grew up in Australia, so I was born in Malaysia, and then moved around quite a little bit when I was very young, and then ended up settling in Alice Springs in Australia when I was 5. So yeah, I've been in Australia since then.
And so then for the audience, what's your ethnic background?
So I'm Malaysian Chinese. My, I guess, ancestry is Chinese, but my extended family has been living in Malaysia.
Okay.
Whereabouts in Malaysia?
Kuala Lumpur.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your childhood then. So in terms of your upbringing, were your parents quite strict, sort of that traditional Asian parents, or how was it for you?
I would say so, especially in the early years, they were quite strict. They would always make me go to like extra tutoring. I remember very vividly, in Alice Springs, there's no Kumon centres, so Kumon's like a tutoring centre.
Yep.
And so my mum actually set up a Kumon centre, so she got like the franchising rights or
All right.
That's next level.
Yep, and literally set up her own Kumon centre in Alice Springs so she could get us to do.
So there wasn't one in Alice Springs?
No, there wasn't.
So she brought it to you?
Yeah. She like went on conferences and things to like Sydney and various places, and like fully had the business going for the whole time that we were there.
All right, well, suffice to say, you had to put the time in then as the daughter of the owner.
Yeah. It was like, every day after school sort of thing.
Yeah.
Did Tristan, for those that know, Tristan's Marissa's brother, he have to do it as well?
Oh, yeah. We were both like doing Kumon. And yeah, it was...
Is it English and math?
English and math, yeah.
English and math, yeah. Because I remember there was like a blue folder and a green folder.
Yeah, I think there was also science, but we didn't do the science part. It was just English and math.
Okay.
Yeah.
So early life then, so you kind of said you've moved around a little bit off camera. So where were you born?
I was born in Kuala Lumpur. Yeah.
And then, so a couple of years there, where was the next stop?
So actually when I was 1, I think we moved to Papua New Guinea. It's all a bit of a blur because I can't remember it myself. It's just what my parents have told me. We moved to Papua New Guinea when I was 1. And then I think after a year we moved back to KL. And then I think we moved to Jordan for some amount of time. Yeah, like in the Middle East. And then moved back to KL. And then when I was 5, then we moved to Alice Springs, and then when I was 10, we moved to Brisbane and have been here.
Okay, so you spend most of your life, your conscious life in Australia then?
Yeah, would say so.
I was unconscious before.
I can't remember before I was like 5.
Fair.
I guess because you guys have moved around in so much, the sort of larger extended family, have you guys been able to have that experience? Like, do you have a lot of family in Australia?
No. So it's just my immediate family in Brisbane. So my parents, me, and my younger brother Tristan. I do have some cousins in Perth. So my dad's sister, their family lives in Perth. And then my dad's brother's family lives in California, but then everyone else is in Malaysia, in KL.
Do your parents try to, I guess, keep the traditions going from the Malaysian Chinese side, or are they fairly assimilated?
I think they made a lot more of an effort to try and keep those things going, like Chinese New Year celebrations and things like that when I was younger. I think as we've kind of grown older, they've also kind of grown away from traditional Asian culture as well.
It's difficult, right? Because
to keep up.
It's totally, or sometimes it's even hard to do. Like I know when back in South Africa, when a family member would die, no one actually remembers the actual tradition. Then they have to go back and speak to some older who's senile at times, and you don't even know what actually needs to happen. Like even my wedding, we tried to do a tea ceremony, and some people knew what to do, but others didn't.
Yeah.
So I think it's just hard as well.
Yeah, for sure. When those traditions are not passed down necessarily, or if it's even close to you.
Yeah, it's like a lot easier, I guess, back in KL when everyone is celebrating Chinese New Year, everyone does that sort of thing, and then here
it helps when you have someone leading, I guess.
That's it. Yeah, someone who actually knows what's meant to happen.
Yeah, that's kind of the natural way I think of how people learn.
I was thinking about it before, and I'll put it out to both of you. Is there anything that your family does that's like a really, say, strong sort of tradition that is unique to your family? So I'll start us off. So one that we used to do is we would celebrate Christmas on the Christmas Eve. So midnight, leading up to midnight, that's as soon as the clock struck over to the 25th, we would then start opening presents. And we used to do this at quite a young age. So I remember probably like 9 or 10, I used to wait up, probably irresponsible parenting by my mum and dad, but wait up and then open the presents and then go to bed at 2 or 3 after you've had to play around.
Right.
Can you guys think of anything that's unique to your families that you guys might have done?
I did that too when I was younger, back in Canberra, because we had like our immediate family and then we had our cousins. So during Christmas, they'd come over and have that sort of affairs. But I think moving to Brisbane, it's pretty much just been us. So even that we kind of lost as we grew older as well.
Because also most families wait till the next morning to open presents.
Yeah,
I know that's kind of what we're doing now with our sort of newer family. Is there anything that you guys did that you can remember?
I don't know. I think my family has never been super close. So I don't think we really had specific things that we do together as a family like that. I can't really think of anything in particular.
You kind of mentioned, and we don't have to go too deep on it, but is there any reason why you feel your family aren't as close? Is it because they were working? I don't want to assume, but...
Yeah. Well, I guess, it's harder to feel like I'm close to my dad because he's been away a lot of my, I guess, teenage life. We moved around a lot as a kid and then settled in Brisbane. And then once we started school, my dad didn't want to move us around anymore, though he still did move around. So like Kevin mentioned, he moved from Brisbane, he moved to Sydney, he moved to Hong Kong, and he's now back. He's working at the Gold Coast, which it's nice to have him back. But there was a big chunk of my teenage years where he just wasn't around a lot, and we only got to see him on the holidays. So I guess in that respect, it was quite hard to maintain like a close relationship with my dad through my formative years. I think maybe it's kind of as a whole, my family doesn't, I guess, show much vulnerability to each other. So we never really have deeper conversations that bring us closer. And I think maybe that's partly due to, I guess in Asian culture, you know, you kind of want to save face or, you know.
It's a very strong parent-child divide.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
The roles are quite clear.
Yeah.
I think it's quite common, that response from the episodes that we've done so far. And the big sort of takeaway is it's the love language.
Yeah.
So traditionally, a lot of Asian parents, their love language was to provide and to give you everything you needed, sort of financially, to have a good life. Whereas I think it's now sort of evolved. Whereas like, okay, you know, how's your emotional well-being? How's your mental well-being?
Yeah.
Whereas I think, traditionally that's probably what it was.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. And so it just always felt like, you know, we were quite, like, even though I've been living under the same roof with my mum and my brother, we were never really that close in the respect that we'd share intimate details about our lives with each other.
And then what's your relationship like now with your brother? Are you guys getting closer, or how's that dynamic?
Well, I guess it's evolved over the years. When we were younger, there was a lot of fighting and, you know, we would always be having to, like, it would be like, you know, physical fighting as well. Like, we'd be like hitting and slapping each other.
How much younger is he than you?
2 years.
Okay, so you guys are close in age.
Yeah,
close.
yeah. So I imagine that wasn't fun for my mum to have to deal with. But as we got older, I think we've gotten closer. And yeah, I guess I feel more comfortable talking to him about things that are going on in my life. And yeah, I feel
And
like
then what
I'm
about
getting
with your
closer.
mum? So it sounds like she's a very driven woman to obviously get Kumon up and running in the Northern Territory, and sounds like it was a fair success. What's it like with her? Is things starting to sort of simmer out and you guys are getting closer, or how's that relationship?
I think over time, we've gotten to a stage where I'll actively, I guess, try and tell her details about my life, to try and, I guess, begin starting to create that closeness that I feel like we lacked when I was younger. So I do think we're making steps towards being more emotionally vulnerable. I think there's a long way to go yet, though.
Yeah. Is that something that's important to you, to have that? Or I guess you wouldn't have really known otherwise? That's kind of been the way you've been raised. Do you think it's something that's important to you now?
I think now I've realised that it is.
I've gone through something similar, actually. Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. Like the last 2 months, I think. Like me, Jay, mum and dad try to have like once a month family catch-ups and
Yeah, I
try and
remember
go
you
through
mentioning that.
those chats. And yeah, I guess deeper dives, share a bit more intimate or things we're going through. Yeah, but like Marissa said, it's baby steps. There's like walls you need to break down with the traditional safe face sort of mentality and being vulnerable.
So with you, Kev, because obviously you've been on here a few times and I've known you for quite a while, the relationship with your parents was, like now you say you're breaking it down, is that something that is important to you? You really want to develop?
It's something my brother brought up, actually, because I think he's been doing marriage counselling, something you do before you get married, apparently.
Oh, yeah, the pre-marital.
Yeah, that's the one. Because they're getting married in later this year in September. So
oh, nice.
that's where I think the whole thing started, brought to light, and realized how important it was. So that was good. I thank my brother for that. But yeah, it's something I've realized it is important. Obviously juggling life and work and everything else. So we try to set aside. Ideally, I think a fortnight would have been good, but at the moment we're working with once a month. I know these things, you got to spend time and do it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just thought it was pretty good. I thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing. I think as long as you made that conscious effort to do that,
It's now in the forefront of
it's
my
going to
mind.
grow.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah.
So then, Marissa, just one of the last sort of things on your family. So, sounds like your mum and your dad were really hardworking. Did you? And we won't jump too far ahead on what you're doing now. We'll talk about that later. But obviously, you would have gotten quite a good example from them on hard work and work ethic and things like that. Can you speak about anything that you sort of saw when you were seeing how hard they were working for you guys?
I was able to see that deep into what everything they did for us. I think as I grew up, I just didn't know there was another way of existing other than working really hard. And I think that has, carried over even until now, for better or for worse.
Yeah. I would say so. Like you say, if that's the only way you knew, then that's the norm.
Yeah.
So you didn't know, lounging on a couch for 2 weeks is just something that you wouldn't entertain.
Yeah.
So
I could vouch for that. Yeah, because she's always doing something. Like,
same with you, to be honest. Like both of you just always trying
7
to
days a
improve and better yourselves. And
do something. Yeah. Almost to the point where you feel like you're burning out. That's something I've come to realize.
Yeah, it's like a
Even
fine
her.
balance. It's hard to...
But I'm glad I'm doing it though, because I want to know where my limit is. You got to push the limit to know where it is, so then you can pull back a bit and hit it.
Well, that's the thing. Like we're in our sort of 20s to 30s, and you realize life goes by so quickly. So you really have a finite time to do the things you want to, and then otherwise it's over.
Yeah.
And then what?
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Well, I guess it's like you can even split up the things that you want to do into like things that you have to work towards in terms of like career and being able to support yourself. And sometimes working so hard on those goals can actually mean that you don't have as much time to do things for yourself, which may also be things that you want to do, like, reading more for me.
Yep.
Or having more time, I guess, to train just for myself. So I think that's where I struggle to balance working hard and doing things for myself.
Yeah, it's so tough. Like these days, there's just so many things. There's so many distractions. There's so many different parts of life pulling us. One of my friends that I've mentioned before, his analogy was life is like a series of pot plants, and you only have so much water, which is obviously your time, and the ones that you water are going to grow, and the other ones that you don't or you neglect aren't.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out what's the most important, where I'm actually going to put my resources to.
Yeah.
And obviously, as you get older, the water dries up. To get too deep, yeah, but
It's all you moisturize.
that's it. Let's talk a little bit about your time at school then. So, I guess you went to primary school in Alice Springs.
Yeah.
You would have been one of 2 Asians in the school.
Yeah. I think there weren't many Asians there at the time. I think there's more now.
Yeah,
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
we're everywhere.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I was the only Asian in my class. Yeah.
And how, at the time, like I suppose Kev and I were exact same situation. We were very much a minority. At the time, you just kind of get through it because there is no other way. In hindsight now, did you feel like you were kind of not outcasted, but did you feel like you fit in because of race, or just didn't bother you?
Honestly, I think I didn't feel the weight of being the only Asian in the class. It's only now that I look back and I think really hard that I can be like, oh yeah, I was really the only Asian, because it just felt like everyone was treated quite the same. Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Is it more multicultural or?
I think there was a lot of Indigenous Australian representation at the school in Alice Springs.
Yep.
I guess the main two groups was Indigenous Australians and Caucasian Australians, and then there was maybe one Asian. So I wouldn't say it was super multicultural. No. Yeah.
Maybe at that age, you just you're oblivious to it. But like you say, in hindsight, when you look back, you're like, it was a bit strange.
Yeah.
Well, they say racism is learned, usually from your parents. So if your parents instill that on you as a kid, that's where it generally comes from.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, I wonder if it's maybe because Alice Springs was such a small sort of community that everyone kind of knew each other. And I think it's harder to be racist to someone that you know because you know them more as a person rather than just
Skin color.
a skin color.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then I guess with the tutoring, and obviously you're a very intelligent woman, were you always near the top of the class?
Yeah.
Be honest.
Yeah.
So humble.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Yeah, just with given the background that I'm hearing about now. And then you guys moved to Brisbane. Like you said, you were around sort of 10, so leading into high school. What sort of school did you go to in Brisbane?
Well, when I first came to Brisbane, I was at a Catholic primary school. And then after that, I moved into a Lutheran sort of college. So they were like prep to year 12. And I kind of spent my in-between high school, like early high school, late primary school years there. And then from years 10 to 12, I moved to a like public school, state school, and finished off my high schooling there. But yeah, no, that was mainly, I guess my parents had always put me into private, I guess religiously affiliated schools. I actually chose myself to move to the state school because I felt like they had better academic offerings and I was kind of driven.
And then I guess sort of moving forwards to now, where obviously you're on your way to do some cool things. Did you take school seriously? Were you quite a good student?
Yeah, I think I took school quite seriously. Like I said earlier, like I just didn't know any other way. And I just kind of carried that through all of my schooling years. I think it was only in maybe years 10 to 12 where I kind of realized that I actually had some goals that I needed to achieve academically to reach my goal of being a doctor. And so then I had a purpose for working hard.
Yeah.
Before that, it was I just had no idea that there was another way of being.
Well, it's pretty impressive that you took yourself out of your old environment and you knew you wanted to go to the state school because of the academics. And also pretty cool that you knew what you wanted to do at that age. I think a lot of us still don't even have an idea of what we want to do. So, like you say, you had a pathway and you were working towards it. So it didn't feel like it was anything different, anything too hard.
Yeah. And I think I had a really good teacher in the school that I went to before I moved to the state school, who actually really pushed me in maths and put me up to the next grade. So I was I think I was in grade 7 when he approached me and asked me if I wanted to do grade 8 maths instead. And so from then on, I was just like a year ahead in that subject. And so when I actually got to year 12 was so much easier because I only had 5 subjects to do because I had completed maths the year before.
Yeah. Still didn't even complete maths. the good stereotype of the Asian who's good at maths. Good to hear.
Yeah.
Still alive and strong.
I'm not in that bucket, unfortunately.
Sounds like you developed a really good internal motivation quite early. Quite young.
Yeah, I guess I would say so. I think it was nice having a purpose for working hard instead of just working hard for.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
Yeah.
It's good to have purpose.
And what were you like during that time? So were you quite a social person? Did you like going out? Or were you, like you said, pretty focused?
I think I was very different back in school. I was very quiet, very introverted. I only had a couple of friends that I was really close to. And I think I had a lot of, I guess, trouble putting myself out there. You know, I struggled with things like public speaking and speaking loud.
Yeah.
Just very shy, yeah. And I think a lot of that changed after I left high school.
Yeah, so we'll get into all that shortly. Can you think of any reason why you... I'm definitely not saying you're low in confidence or anything like that, because there's plenty to be confident about. But at that time, can you think of any reasons why you might have been shy or less loud and boisterous?
I think I definitely had low confidence back then. I mean, I don't want to, blame the way that I was brought up too much or anything, but I think I was brought up with sort of the view that there's always, well, maybe that I was always told that I wasn't good enough and I needed to continue working hard to eventually get to the place where I was good enough. Whether that was like academically or when I was younger, I did rhythmic gymnastics competitively. I think maybe that may have contributed.
Yeah. Like you say, you don't want to put the blame, but that might have been a factor among other things as well.
Yeah.
Probably finding yourself at that age, not knowing sort of which direction you want to go. I think we're all a victim of that.
Yeah. I think it's the development of self-worth and understanding your own self-worth. It takes time to grow. I mean, I guess at a young age, you rely on whether it's your parents or friends try and teach you what self-worth is like. And if they constantly bring you down or tell you need to be this to be worthy, then I guess that would give you low self-confidence.
Yeah. I think when I was younger, I'd always thought that, worth was kind of based on what you achieved. So, I had to get A+, otherwise I wasn't good enough, or, had to place at my gymnastic competitions, otherwise, what was I even doing that for?
Yeah.
Rather than having that innate sense of self-worth that I think I developed later on.
Fine balance, isn't it? Because you can meet some people that have a high, like an overinflated level of self-worth as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's getting the right balance.
Yeah.
And I guess it all just goes back to, again, it's self-worth. So if someone perceives themselves as amazing and when they haven't actually achieved much, that's cool, because that's for them. Similarly, I guess in your situation where you wanted to really get something on the board and then you could be proud of that, yeah, same thing. I guess we all just develop in our own ways and our own timelines.
Yeah.
And then probably my last thing on school, so did you hang out more with white people or Asians at that time? Didn't really matter?
In my earlier schooling years, up until I moved to the state school, I think I spent more time with Caucasian Australians, just because there were less Asians in the environment, I think. When I did move in year 10 to the state school, there was a lot of Asians. Like 1/3 of the school was probably Asian.
Yeah.
So I found that all of the Asians would kind of stick together. There was about, I think there was maybe like 300 people in my grade. And so the Asian group that I hung out with was maybe like, there were maybe 50 of us in the same group.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and so we would all sit in the same area and have like our little subgroups within the group. But I guess we all kind of stuck together in that same area.
That's pretty cool. And did you feel really comfortable in that environment?
I would say so. Like I wasn't super. I had like my one or two really close friends, and I would mostly stick to them. But I would say I was pretty comfortable in that group. Yeah.
Okay. Because I guess you had the similar situation.
Oh yeah, virtually exactly the same thing.
So no Asians to mainly Asians.
Yeah, from Canberra, then halfway through year 9, moved to Brisbane to a state school. So not only was it, going from private school to public schooling, it was also like high level of multiculturalism, and then obviously the mixed race. Oh, not mixed race, sorry, mixed gender. Yeah.
Total change. Yeah.
Total change. That was good. I had the same thing. Very comfortable pretty much straight away. Didn't feel out of place at all.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I never got that experience. So, might be why I am the way I am. So, random, but obviously in this episode, Kevin and I spoke about the use of chopsticks, how it all started, and obviously things like if you go to dinner with your Asian friends, they'll offer you chopsticks. If you go with a white friend, they'll give him a spoon or a fork, him or her. What is your experience with chopsticks? Are you pretty proficient?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Because the techniques vary, as we've spoken about. So some people will just use like a scissor technique, and others
I feel like we need
stab.
chopsticks in hand just to the audience can judge
Yep.
Yeah.
the technique, and that might be better.
Well, I've heard people talk about like a wrong technique and a right technique, but I'm not entirely sure what that means. I've heard that like, if they cross, it's the wrong technique.
Yep.
But the way I do it is like I imagine that I'm holding a pencil with one chopstick, and then I slide the other chopstick through and put it in between my third and fourth fingers. And so I kind of like use I hold that one in place and use the pencil one to squeeze and pick things up.
I think you have the right technique.
Yeah, that sounds like the right technique.
Which is totally opposite to my wife. Because the cross technique, you have no strength.
Yeah, there's no power.
Yeah. So you need to pick up anything heavy, you're in trouble.
Yeah, or a slippery dumpling. You just need to be able to control the power too. Because sometimes you got to pick it up just right amount. Too much force and it slips right out.
That's it. And then the last thing on the chopsticks is, at what point do you just give up and say, screw it, I'm just going to use a spoon? Is that when you've got that last little bit of rice at the bottom?
Yeah, or soup.
Or that's when you just grab the bottom.
Yeah, true.
Trying to eat your soup with chopsticks.
Just turn your chopstick into a straw temporarily. Actually, I got another one for chopsticks. What's the superior material? Metal. Like the Korean ones use metal. Chinese use plastic usually, the restaurants, and then Japanese usually use wood.
See,
or bamboo. Yeah.
If we go through them all individually, obviously the metal ones are shit when they're hot because you will burn your mouth.
Yeah.
So the Korean ones, for me, are at the bottom. Now why does anyone know why they are metal?
I don't know.
I had to guess it'd go back to the war times. Because their utensils are usually metal. Like, the little bowl that they put
it's easy to clean, right? Nothing gets stuck in it, and you can kind of just wipe it and...
Sure, true. They're like the most durable by far.
Yep.
Yeah. Have they actually been hot when you've been eating things before? Because I've never had that experience. Like, I've used, I guess, the metal chopsticks in...
Korean barbecue, yes. When you're like picking up meat and putting it there, sometimes you leave it there a bit too long and then...
Oh, true, yeah.
It hasn't burned me. I haven't had that experience like it Ethan's had, but it's definitely gotten warm to the point where like you put it on your tongue and like, ooh, that kind of singed. That's spicy.
I usually get done if you have a bibimbap. and then the stone bowl, and then I just leave it in there if I'm talking to someone, and then I take it out. I'm like, maybe that's just me. And then I guess the next one is, so the Chinese mainly use the plastic chopsticks, which for me I think is the best substance.
Really? I was going to say it's the worst for me.
Well, again, cleanliness, because the worst thing is when you have the wooden ones, and you're like, how many people have bloody been using this? And that goes to my head straight away every time. Like,
I'm thinking about it at home.
Oh, at home.
When I'm at home, I always prefer the wooden ones.
Yeah, I mean, easiest to use.
Yeah, it gives me the best enjoyment of the food. You know how like when you drink Coke out of a
grip,
glass
it's got
bowl?
this superior grip.
It's got the grip. It's lightweight. Feels good in the hand. Good girth.
I like the metal ones. I like how they're like skinnier.
They're too skinny for me.
Sometimes they're flat as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually like that.
It's easier. It's more like a spoon because you can kind of just like wedge it. I don't know.
The closer it is to a spoon.
Seems to be.
Should just eat with spoons.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, that's cool enough for the
So your team plastic.
I think so.
What about you? Metal.
Team metal. Yeah.
And I wood. Interesting.
So, Marissa, if anyone sees you on Instagram, one, like I said at the start, you post awesome content, and two, you seem to really enjoy bubble tea and I guess desserts and things like that. So the bubble tea, I still don't really get it, maybe because I didn't grow up around it. I know Kev is a lover of it. Well, you sort of grew into it, didn't you?
Yeah, I grew into it because when I came to Brisbane, that was the first time I had it. Yeah, I kind of just enjoy it as a social thing, you know.
Yep.
I'd rarely get it for the sake of getting it.
What about you, Marissa? So what is it about it and how often do you drink it?
Oh. Okay, well, I guess it varies. The most I've had in a day is 12.
What?
In one day. But that was a one-time thing.
Are you trying to go for a number or something?
Yeah, tell the story.
Yeah, let's hear this. Jeez.
So it was when Gongcha in South Bank was opening, so ages ago, back when I was in high school. And they had this deal where it was like buy one, get one free because they were opening that day. So I went in and I was like meaning to just grab one and get one free. And as I got to the counter, they like preemptively told me the maximum you can buy is 6. So like obviously like I had to get 6.
Challenge accepted. So it's almost like they have been abused by previous customers. They're like, I want 10, give me 10.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, no, the max is 6.
Yeah.
And they've just been telling everyone constantly.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I was only going to get one, but since you've asked,
well, 12 it is.
Upsold.
Yeah.
So did you obviously change the flavors? You didn't just get 12 of the same?
No, I had like a mix of flavors and then I kind of just brought them home and put them in the fridge and then like while I was studying, I would just like constantly drink bubble tea.
The feel of champions.
Yeah.
Must be. And I'm assuming you've seen or haven't seen how much sugar's in it?
Tends to turn a blind eye.
Choose to ignore that.
Right.
Yeah,
Right,
and
well,
usually I get quarter sugar, so
yes.
It's a little bit better. I tell myself it's a little bit better.
Only 18 teaspoons of sugar. So obviously, massive bubble tea fan. I think that's been discussed. Do you like desserts and do you have a sweet tooth?
It's funny actually. I wouldn't say that I have a sweet tooth. Like I like getting like no sugar or quarter sugar in my bubble teas. When I get desserts, I don't really like if they're too sweet. I think honestly it's become like a device for me to maintain productivity.
Okay.
Maybe that sounds weird, but I find it really difficult to study at home. So I always, when I go study, I study at a cafe or like I go to a bubble tea shop and I study. So I just like have like a snack there while I'm studying or like a bubble tea. And because there's people around me, I can't just lie on the floor or like, go to sleep. So it makes me, being in that environment plus having the snack helps me keep my focus when I'm studying.
Whatever works, I suppose.
Yeah.
I would be the exact opposite, but that's really interesting that you say. So it's kind of like a comfort. It gets you out, gets you in that right study environment.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Also you just want something to kind of sip on. Cool.
It's like social norms have stopped her from going to sleep in the cafe.
Yes.
Whereas if you're at home, the bed's right there.
Exactly.
Just sleep and crash, and then you wake up and it's like, 6 o'clock. What have I done?
May as well nap for another hour.
Yeah.
May as well just go tomorrow.
So then what's the weekly consumption like now? Average.
Average? I mean, maybe like 3, 4 a week. I wouldn't say I have it every day. During exam block, every day, but on average, maybe 3, 4.
I think I've underestimated how much of a bubble tea lover she is, so I'm glad we discussed that one. So let's then move on to now. So like you say, studying. So we sort of touched on it before. You were always quite a good student, very driven, and you sort of spoke about that before. Obviously, you're now studying med and almost there. I don't know if you feel like you're almost there, but you're more than halfway. Take us back to when you first thought it would be a cool career or something that you wanted to aspire to.
Well, when I was younger, I wanted to be a vet. And I think that was because I loved horses. So I actually, when I was in high school, I worked for a stable.
Okay.
So when my dad lived in the Hunter Valley for work, and I went to visit him every holidays, I would spend 1 week living with my family, and then I'd spend 1 week living at the stable, working at the stable, and working with like the vet and the farrier who would come. And so I wanted to be a vet. And then when I was maybe late high school, I had some issues with acne. And so I went to see a dermatologist. And he was just so patient and would always tell me exactly what he was doing and explain the processes to me. And I found, I kind of want to be like this guy.
Okay.
And then I think I transitioned from wanting to take care of animals to being like, maybe I want to take care of humans. And so I was like, yeah, maybe I want to be a doctor. And I initially thought that I'd want to be a dermatologist because of my dermatologist. But after doing a bit of placement, I think my interests lie more in psychiatry, either that or infectious diseases currently.
Well, there's so many options out there for you guys.
Yeah.
As new sort of young doctors at the moment. It's cool to hear that story because I'm glad you didn't just say money and to please parents, which is usually the answer.
Yeah, that's really cool that dermatologist had that impact on you.
Yeah.
Have you reached out to him at all? 'Cause
No.
I think it would be really cool for him to that's
hear that.
the impression that he made on someone
Yeah,
at
actually.
a young age, and maybe once you grad, then you can sort of say,
Here I am, I
I
made
did
it.
this
Yeah,
because I was inspired by
yeah.
the way you treated me.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point.
I think it'll go a long way.
Yeah, yeah.
And cool. So that's how you got into it. Obviously, worked really hard in school to get to this point. How have you found the study so far? So most of the med students or doctors I talk to, it's an absolute obsession. So you're reading about it in your spare time. It's generally something that you really care about. Whereas I think a lot of jobs, you just do it for the money and 9 to 5 and switch off. Are you the sort of former? You really love the idea of medicine?
Yeah, I do. I definitely relate to the, always studying, every spare minute really that you have is spent studying. But I think I've really tried to balance it with the other parts of my life because there are other things that are really important to me as well. So like, for example, pole. I also play touch rugby league. Starting to play at a competitive level for that as well.
Jeez.
And social life, I guess, is also.
So how do you maintain a relationship with the time?
honestly, that's probably been my biggest struggle throughout med school, maintaining that balance. And I still struggle with it to this day. And I think currently my strategy has been, I bring my laptop, my study stuff everywhere I go. So if, say, I'm going to placement and then I'm going to go teach pole and I have an hour gap in between those, I have my study things and I'll go to a cafe or maybe I'll go to pole and just spend that hour studying and then go do what I need to do. So it's like all the little gaps in my day are spent studying. So
and when you add them all up.
Yeah, and then when you add them all up, it makes a difference. And I still get to go and do the things that I want to do. And I think definitely because I have all these other priorities in my life, I do have to compromise on my study at times. And I think I'm okay with that because I don't think I could give up TRL or pole or my social life and be happy with that.
Yeah. As we've been speaking about it all this whole time, it's about that balance.
Yeah.
And finding that balance, and sometimes something will take priority, sometimes others will.
Yeah.
So it's really trying to weigh it all up and not get over-consumed by one or two different things.
Yeah.
You sort of touched on it before about you always felt like you had to get the A's and you had to do well in gymnastics to appease others. When you got into med, how proud were your family of you?
They were really proud of me. I think. I don't think I told them that I wanted to be a doctor. I think they thought that I wanted to be a vet. And then I just randomly came out and told them like, oh, I got into med at UQ.
Oh,
like,
very nice surprise for a mum and dad.
Yeah. So no, they were super proud.
Do you remember that day?
Yeah.
I was going to say, well, how proud of yourself were you? Because I think just listening to you today, a lot of it was, there's external, but a lot of it was for yourself. You wanted to prove yourself.
Yeah.
So how proud were you of yourself?
I don't know. It's funny because like my view back then was, I had to achieve things to be worth anything. But then once you achieve the thing, it's like there's always something more to achieve. And so it's like it doesn't end there. And so I don't know if I really took the time to stop and be proud of myself. It was just, okay, well, now I need to be a doctor. I need to get to the end of my med degree.
What about now, though? Do you pause and celebrate or pause and take it in when you reach a milestone?
I try to make an effort to do that a little bit more. Appreciate the small things. Like, I guess recently in one of my subjects, which was rural medicine, actually, I submitted an assignment and topped my placement for
congrats.
that. And I tried to, take a moment and be proud of myself for that. But I don't think it comes naturally.
I think, it has to be a conscious effort because there's always going to be something next. So like you say, it's okay, cool, I got into med, I got to finish now. I finished, I've got to specialize. You specialize, I want to be one of the best in my field, and it just doesn't end. So consciously giving yourself that pat on the back every now and then, I think will go a long way.
Yeah. And maybe if I do it enough times consciously, it'll start becoming a little bit more natural, I hope.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. And then I guess, you spoke about it. So you wanted to be a vet. You went down the med path. That's the path that you're on now. You're still kind of undecided about what's next in terms of specializing, graduate first. It's probably where you're thinking.
Yeah.
Outside of all that, so you got rugby, touch rugby league, pole. let's talk about the rugby league first. So, what is it that you love? Do you just like being in the team environment, the exercise? It sounds like it's a pretty big part of your life.
Yeah, I guess it has become a big part of my life. You're playing
like represent, or you say you're playing like really competitive now.
Yeah. So I started that maybe 5 years ago now, I think. And it started off just social, and it still is social. And more of a way to get a little bit of cardio, spend some time with friends. But then I guess, over time we kind of got a little bit better. And our team has recently become a rep team. So I guess, we play within the region of South Brisbane, and there's like social competitions where you just enter a team and play socially within the South Brisbane region. But then there's competitive TRL in which the regions verse each other, and so they have like states, nationals, things like that. So now we play for South Brisbane.
And how does it work? Because I'm assuming, like you said, you guys together as a team made it. So you don't just select the best team and go. It's your team is that team that represents it.
You don't select different people from different teams.
Yeah, like if you're like, nah, this dude's no good, I don't want him.
Yeah, how does it? Does it take the whole team? How does it work?
Well, it's actually they select individuals.
Okay.
So you go to trials, and then they select individuals, and they make teams for you.
Right, okay.
So I actually never went to trials. The captain of my social team, plus another guy who's the captain of the rep team currently, who are in my social team, they made the rep team through trials. And then a couple of people pulled out, and so they suggested a couple of people from our social team to join the rep team.
Yep.
And they were approved by the venue managers, and I was one of them. So I suppose, like, I never really went through the official process of trials and all that. But now most of our social team is the rep team, plus a couple of...
So those people recognize, like, some of the, I guess, I don't know, better players, for lack of a better word, and they select you or put you forward because to fill the spots. Because trials are finished, I guess, and people pulled out.
Yeah.
So when you say we made it, you made it.
Well, like, there were a couple of people.
It's like the rest of the team didn't make it. It's like, we made it,
stragglers
guys.
didn't make it. Oh, that's cool. And obviously you enjoy the team aspect as well, I'm sure. I know for me, I don't like individual sports as much. We didn't really talk too much about it for you, but were you pretty athletic growing up? Did you play a lot of sports?
I don't know if I'd say I was athletic. Looking back, I did a lot of activity. Like, I did rhythmic gymnastics until I was maybe 12, and then actually I broke my tailbone then, so that's why I had to stop gymnastics, and so I went into swimming because it was like low impact, and I guess I'd always been doing something, but back then it was more like my parents said I had to do something active, so those were just the things that I chose. I guess now I choose for myself to be active.
Yep. Would you say your parents are kind of like tiger parents?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say that. Maybe I've given the impression that they are, but I feel like they were more like that when I was younger, and then when I hit high school, I think they relaxed a lot. I think they realized that maybe I was fine.
Yeah, I think maybe that's what it is.
That's what I'm hearing too.
You've done the work. She's on the right path.
The internal motivation's there. There's nothing for them to really do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, probably a massive relief for a parent. I can only imagine.
Oh yeah, massive relief for me as well.
Yeah,
the pressure's off.
Everyone's I suppose not benefiting, but everyone's happy with it. The situation. So we've spoken about your couple of loves, so bubble tea, medicine, touch rugby league. Let's talk a little about pole. So when did you start practicing?
I think I started the beginning of 2017. So what? That's like 6 years.
Nearly 6 years.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, it is 6 years ago now.
And yeah, when I first started, when I was in undergrad, I had a lot of time. So I was spending a lot of time at Pole, every day pretty much at Pole, working really hard. I really wanted to compete and teach. And yeah, I started teaching 1 year into my pole journey.
Where did the desire to teach come from so early?
I think, I don't know, I
'Cause
really
had you
looked
taught
up.
before? Had you taught before in any capacity?
No.
Okay.
I think I really looked up to my instructors, and I wanted to be like them, and be able to guide my students into achieving the moves they wanted to achieve.
Kind of sounds like that dermatologist again.
Yeah,
positive
yeah,
impact.
yeah.
Well, that's the thing, and people don't realize the impacts they can have on others
Yeah.
a lot of times. So it's cool that you're highlighting certain individuals who've sort of sculpted the way you are.
Was there any particular teacher that you could remember from your first year?
Yes, actually, my first ever instructor. So I started pole at Addictive Pole Fitness, and my first ever instructor, her name was Kat. She's still there.
Shout out to Kat.
Yeah. And she's such a good teacher. It breaks down the moves so well, inspires the students, inspired me to be better. And I remember seeing her at competitions and being like, wow, I want to do cool stuff. I want to do cool stuff like that. And I want to put it on stage.
That's awesome. It's
Yeah.
probably the greatest honor.
So you were saying that you were fairly, like you say, not lower on confidence, things like that. It's obviously a big step to get into
Yeah.
pole. Did you kind of play around in your mind before you actually committed to it? Or was it, I'm just going to do it and let's just do it?
So I guess the way I started pole was I wanted to do something that involved strength and flexibility again. So I wanted something like gymnastics.
Yeah, well, you had that background, so you kind of, you would have had strength in some of the movements.
Yeah, and I guess I was just sick of swimming.
Don't blame
looking at the line on the ground for hours and just like waiting till it ended. I just wanted to do something more interesting, and I loved the artistry of gymnastics, and I wanted something similar. And so I did tumbling for a bit, but wasn't really for me. And then I found pole. I went for a free trial class at APF Addictive Pole Fitness. And I just, I guess on a whim, I was like, yeah, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try and be good at this. And I told my parents, and they were like, pole? What do you want to do that for? Like, like, what is the purpose of this? I think they were trying to,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's a stereotype of pole being, I guess, just for strippers.
Yep.
And I think they were a bit shocked when I said that I wanted to do pole.
That's kind of where it originated, right? Is that right? Like pole, is that where it originated?
Yeah.
It's kind of what we're exposed to from a media point of view as well.
Yeah. So they were quite shocked. But
Would it have mattered if they said, Marissa, we don't really want you to do it?
Well, that's exactly what they said actually at the beginning. But I guess I just took no heed of that and started it anyway. And I think along the way they kind of grew to accept that it was a big part of who I was. And honestly, I think the shift in my confidence level actually came from pole. A lot of people at pole are, I guess you have to be a certain type of person. Like you have to be quite open-minded to start pole.
Yep.
because of the stigma that surrounds it. And I think being around so many open-minded people who are very body positive and, you know, they had things like a strong sense of self-worth and self-confidence really helped bring me out of my shell. And I guess they were the people I was inspired by at Pole were not only role models for me at Pole, but role models for how I wanted to see myself in a more general sense in terms of confidence. And yeah.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah, that's really great.
I think because obviously Kev's spoken about his journey with us, and he was saying, you know, when he first did it and he started putting up a couple of videos, a few of the extended family members were a bit like, ooh, I don't know about this, and then he's doing it for himself, and his confidence grew, and again the community probably helped.
Yeah, I was hyper aware of how that would look as a straight male doing it as well, but I took it all in stride, and I wanted to make a impact on my family. Because there was a point in the early stages where I bought heels and got pink purposely to really make the statement that anyone can do this.
Yep.
But yeah, I echo Marissa's sentiments. My confidence grew like crazy from that. I think it grew really big from Cali, and then when I joined Pole, I was like, oh, it's pretty much the same environment. Everyone's really
Slightly
supportive, and yeah, slightly less. I was topless before, now I'm pantless.
It's a progression.
It's a progression, yeah.
That's next. I also really like how you just said that it's to actually want to start Pole, you have to really be open-minded, and I think a lot of people aren't, so that's why they don't do it.
Yeah.
So it's cool to have guys like you come on,
Yeah.
and actually talk about it. It's not just for stripping. It's not just for looking cool on Instagram. There's a whole community that's super supportive about it. So
yeah. I mean, I think at the same time too, there's a lot of sex workers and strippers in the community, and I think it's important to acknowledge that that's kind of where Pole came from. And I think there's a big push right now to remember the roots of Pole, because at one stage, because of the stigma, a lot of people in the pole community were trying to differentiate from the sex worker community, being like, this is pole fitness, this isn't stripping.
Yep.
But in doing that, that kind of alienates that whole group that was the reason why we started our sport in the first place. So yeah, I think it's really important to remember where this art form, this sport came from.
Yep. And obviously the two of you guys compete together and put up some ridiculous videos. I love the bloopers more than anything. Because you always see all these like flips and stuff. I'm like, geez, I wonder how many times they heard it. And then Kev always puts up like, oh yeah, hurt my toe, whatever. Because it's so cool. You're showing the real side of it too.
I think that was the difference. Because at the time, social media, Instagram in particular, everyone just shows the highlight reel. So there wasn't a lot of showing of the behind the scenes and the bloopers. So at least brings back down to earth that even the athletes, we make mistakes. We make so many mistakes.
Oh yeah, there's more bloopers than there's like highlights.
We probably make more mistakes than the average beginner has attempted it. That's how you get good at the end of the day. And I think that's what we wanted to highlight. It's like, it's okay to make mistakes. Because even in my Cali classes and teaching, I see the hesitation in students. They don't want to try it because of fear of failure.
Yep.
But you've got to embrace the failure.
The biggest takeaway for me when I see those is how hard you guys actually have to work. Because they're used to like, oh yeah, he's doing this and that. Can't be that hard. Then you see him like fall and hurt himself all the time. Like, yeah, shit, yeah, this is hard work.
Get up and do it again. Yep.
Yeah.
So then to, I guess, sum it all up, Marissa, so obviously my takeaway is you're an extremely high-achieving person, hardworking. Just to then touch on how you're balancing it all and different things that you need to kind of put more effort into and things like that. To your younger self then, what advice would you give to yourself to try and say, all right, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this as well? How are you going to manage it all? Is there anything you tell yourself?
I think if there's one thing that I would tell my younger self is and I don't know if it would get through, but I would say don't be afraid to be authentically yourself. Like, because at that age, I had quite low confidence. I was quite shy. I think if I had been able to break out of my shell earlier, I think I could have had so much more time doing things that I enjoyed, such as pole, or, I think at that age I wanted to do dance, but then I was scared to put myself out there to do it. Yeah. I think I would have told myself to do all those things regardless of what I thought other people might think of me, because honestly, other people probably don't care.
Yeah. That's the hardest thing, eh? I think most of us can relate when you're in high school. Like, we all thought that. And once you get out, as you get closer to late 20s, you realize people do not care as much as you think.
And even parents to an extent. Like, now we're all adults, and our parents' words still mean, and they carry weight. At the same time, it's your life. And you're the one who's going to have to live with it. They'll pass on or whatever. And you're the one who's going to have to live with it at the end.
Yeah, and I think my parents are quite good in the fact that they're quite accepting of anything I do now. So, they were a bit hesitant when I started pole, but since then they've been to a couple of competitions, come to support me, and Kevin, when we've done our doubles, when I competed in Hong Kong and my dad was in Hong Kong, he actually came to watch me at that competition. So
that's good. Nice.
Yeah, they've really embraced pole since then.
It's the same with your family as well, Kev, isn't it?
Yeah, they came to watch as well. Yeah, QPC. Yeah. At the early days, there was the struggle, same thing, but they're obviously much more accepting of it now. Every now and then, Mum's still like, you should try Latin dancing. And I'm like,
how do you reckon you'd fare?
Not good. Too left feet. That's why I haven't started yet.
Awesome. Well, Kev's just going to ask a couple of quick questions. Don't think about it too much. Sort of first thing that comes to mind, and then I guess a little bit of context about why. So let's go.
All right. So we'll start at the top. Who is your biggest role model?
Oh, who's my biggest role model?
You want to pick three?
It doesn't have to be one person.
Yeah, you can pick many. You get different areas of your life. You have different role models. Because like even listening to your story, you had some very early ones.
Yeah, well, I guess there's a few people that have kind of, I think, shaped the way that I am today. Like I was saying, the dermatologist when I was younger, who really inspired me to start med. My first instructor at pole, Kat. And I think my current mentor, instructor at pole, Shell, she pushes me to do a lot of things that I never thought that I could do, and has faith in me that I can do them. So I think she's a really big inspiration for me currently as well.
Shout out to Shell. Yeah.
Just on pole. So obviously there's like an unlimited amount of tricks and things you guys can do. So for you guys, is it just trying to try something new all the time? Like how do you, it's like skateboarding. Like there's just so many things you can do. Like how do you actually get to a level that you're happy with?
I think at the start, like it's about trying heaps of different things and finding out which ones work for you the best. Because obviously, certain body shapes are better at doing certain moves. And I think finding some things that you're good at can help when you start to create a comp routine, and you need to really like refine the movement. So then once you've got this like repertoire of things that you can do, putting them together and then really refining them to a point where you're they're really clean. The entries and exits, the moves are clean.
And the
It's like a
musicality.
processed. Yes, the musicality. Kevin.
Is that your weakness?
What makes you say that?
I've just known you for a decade. I'm kidding. Cool.
But yeah, because at the early days of pole, there is quite a good structure. Once you reach a certain level, I guess you just go to Instagram and pick stuff that you want to try. And yeah, like Marissa said, you see what works for your body. Like I realized very early on, anything splitty or backbendy was not my jam. Anything strength related was fine for me.
Yeah.
But obviously now, nearly 2 years on, obviously my flexibility has grown a lot, so I can start to explore some of those tricks and not feel like I'm dying on the pole.
And then also, I guess, like when you guys are doing a partnership, you get to know what works, and then you can kind of build the routines around that.
Yeah,
I'm talking out of my ass here.
absolutely. No, you're right.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot of trial and error. There's things we look at, and I kind of look at it, I'm like, Marissa will send it to me on Instagram, like, yeah, we can do this. I'm like, can we though? And then we try, and we go, oh yeah, we can.
Yeah. And there's been certain things where it looks super easy, but then we've realized because of our body proportions, like I have quite long legs and a short torso. And then looking at other doubles partners that have like a girl that's very short legs, short torso.
Yep.
And the guy's much taller.
And the guy's much taller. Some of the moves don't work as well because of
just
the different proportions
just
and
maths,
like things that we
just
didn't
physics,
realize would impact on the move.
Yeah. So we had to make some adjustments, but yeah, we actually made it work and it still looked good.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
So it's kind of like acrobatics, but on the pole. Trial and error. All right, next one. What does a meaningful life look like to you?
Oh, that's a big question.
These are meant to be quick.
I think
It doesn't have to be. It's more just
Just
an
kidding.
insight into what you think.
yeah, a meaningful life. I think currently the way I would interpret that is a life where I can do all of the things that are important to me. So a life in which I can have that career, social, sport balance. So where I could, spend a lot of time studying, put in that hard work, but then also have the time to further myself in pole, train TRL, spend time with my friends and family, the ones that I care about. Yep. I think that would be a meaningful life for me. I think that's what I strive for.
Yep.
Perfect.
Love that. What is your greatest accomplishment?
My greatest accomplishment? Oh, geez.
And you don't have to be modest.
It's your time to flex.
I don't know. I guess I'm proud of myself for making it into med. I think, and it seems small, but I think something that I'm proud of myself for achieving it, I guess, based on things my students have told me at Pole, is being what I think I'm a good instructor now, after having, my going through pole for the past 6 years. And I think learning how moves are different on different bodies and helping students of all body types, all backgrounds, achieve tricks differently, in a way that suits their body. I think I'm proud of being an instructor that can help them achieve that.
So you're more like analytical and you're not just saying everyone needs to do this one trick. You can actually tailor your teachings.
Yeah, and it's like, maybe everyone can do the same trick, but they have to go about it in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I'm most proud of myself for doing.
Yeah, developing yourself into a competent teacher, I guess.
Yeah.
Nice. Love that. Building on that, I guess. What's your dream job?
A dream job? I guess I don't really know where med is going to take me yet. I've mentioned possible interests in specialties, but I guess dream job would probably be being able to be a doctor that can make a difference in the lives of the patients that I see. I guess the reason why I was interested in psychiatry is because I feel like, you get to talk with patients about things that really matter to them, and spend the time getting to know them and really making a difference in their lives to the things that they care about. So yeah, just being a doctor, any type of doctor who can make a difference to my patients and maintaining the ability to teach pole. I think I really would like to keep doing that as I
There's 2 jobs.
move further into my
What would
career.
it be totally outside of pole and med if you could have a dream job?
Oh, if I could have a dream job outside of that, I don't know. It's not really something that I've thought about in a long time. It's just kind of, I chose my paths and
I guess if you imagine you're retired, would that be the way to try and think of it?
imagine, yeah,
So money
money
time
didn't matter.
means nothing.
Yeah.
You can just do whatever you
In a
want.
world where...
I'd be a WWE superstar.
Cool.
What about you, Kev?
Yeah. I'm going to do a travel hotel bed tester.
Wouldn't be the worst. Like a cocktail tester or something.
Yeah. I think I would be a pole instructor, like one of those ones that do workshops all over the world.
Oh,
and
yeah. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah, or calisthenics workshops around. I enjoy teaching that. Yeah. Okay. How would others describe you?
I guess you'd have to ask those people.
How do you think others would describe you?
I'd hope they'd describe me as someone who's kind and open-minded and hardworking. I guess that's how I would like to be seen.
Perfect.
Yep. If someone stole food to feed their starving family, would you consider them a bad person?
No, I don't think so.
Why?
I think, you can either look at certain actions themselves as being bad, which, if you looked at it that way, stealing is bad, and therefore they're a bad person for stealing. But I think in desperate times, people do drastic things, and I could see myself doing the same thing. And I would probably feel bad for doing it, but at the same time, there would be a reason why. And I think if someone has to do that, it kind of points to a larger problem of, well, why are there people out there who feel the need to do that? And maybe it's a societal
issue.
problem,
A systemic issue.
Yeah, like I guess in med and things like that, they talk about the social determinants of health, how a lot of like education, the people you hang around, the background of your family, like all those social determinants contribute to how healthy you are. I think if it's not really, you can't really say that person is a bad person. It's more like they've been put in a bad situation and they're doing their best to.
It's not a zero-sum game, I guess, because if you think of karma as a whole, like say the person did that and then later on decided to repay the shop that they stole from once they had come out of their bad situation. You know, if you ask the same question, you'd be like, no, they're not a bad person. They're just, like you said, stuck in a tricky situation.
Talking of the societal factors and things like that, I watched this really interesting video, and it's kind of related, but not really. It was about the height growth of people over the last 200 years. And the country that has the most height growth is South Korea, purely because they now have access to food and different things like that. So like the average woman, I think in South Korea was like 145 centimeters, I think maybe 100 years ago. And now it's like 165 or something.
Wow, that's interesting.
It's the quickest change during that period. And yeah, it's exactly
Just purely from food and nutrition.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and then North Korea when they're only going with people who've expated, but not good.
Yeah. Well, I guess, if they are healthy and they're getting that food and nutrition, they can also, they don't have to spend their energy on finding food, finding the basic necessities for life. They can spend it getting educated, finding good jobs so they don't have to then go and steal things for their family because they're struggling. So it's like such a flow and effect that it's not really a person's fault for being so poor that they need to steal.
Yeah, that was a loaded question, that one.
Yeah.
All right. What do you do to relax?
What do I do to relax? Oh, gosh. In the ideal world, I'd have more time to read. I like reading like fiction books. I don't do that a lot during the semester because I find I don't have a lot of time to relax. Like, a lot of my spare time, all the bits of time in between activities I'm studying. So, yeah.
And you also have, like, by the sounds of it, a lot of escapes from the study. So you've got your, your TRL, your whole different things. So you don't need to read to...
Yeah, and you're traveling on holidays.
Even amongst the bubble teas.
Yeah.
Describe your perfect day. Who is it with? And take us through morning, afternoon, and evening.
I suppose perfect day, I'd be able to sleep in a little bit, not wake up and have to go to placement immediately. I'd wake up with my partner, have breakfast together, be able to take the morning slow, I think. I'm not really a morning person. And then go and...
So what time do you normally wake up? What time would you like to wake up?
I think normally for placement currently I wake up around 6 because I usually have to be at placement at 7:30 and morning traffic is terrible, so it takes me about an hour to get there. Ideally, I think waking up at 7:30 is like a good time because it
Okay,
still
so it's not
feels
unreasonable. It's like an hour.
Yeah,
an extra hour. I was expecting like 9, 10 or something.
Well, I feel like when I wake up so late, I feel like I've wasted so much of the day.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I used to do that, and then I'm like, damn.
You've been waking up really early, haven't you?
Yeah, I wake up at like 5:30 sometimes, but usually around 6 to 6:30 on average. There was a time when I was like, crack of dawn, 5:30.
Rough.
Wake up at like 8 o'clock some days.
I haven't done that in so long. Oh man.
And then, so what would you do in the afternoon?
And then I'd go train, do some pole, maybe do some doubles with Kevin, and probably meet up with friends for dinner, and then go home and have some time to unwind. And I think I'm really looking forward to after med school when I can study because I want to study and not because I have exams. And then, so like
That
maybe
external motivation versus that internal again.
Yeah. Like, maybe I could just read a journal article because I wanted to, not because I need to pass my exam.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Nearly there.
Yeah.
It sounds like a pretty good day.
All right. So,
Sorry, I was going to say the very last one is just what's next for you. So obviously graduate, things like that. Is there anything you're working on at the moment that hasn't really been mentioned?
Well, so I guess I graduate at the end of the year. I don't think I mentioned that before.
No.
So
Well, that's awesome.
yeah, so I'm in my last year currently. So at the end of this year, I'll graduate, and hopefully next year I'll start working as a doctor. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to, I guess, being on placement. It's hard because you don't get paid for being on placement. I'm looking forward to getting paid.
this is the craziest thing. She's told me this before. She's
Slave
working
labor.
more. Yeah, it's slave labor.
Literally.
What a
Yeah.
weird industry.
And then even the first couple of years, it's still like it's good. It's better than no money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it kind of ramps up pretty quickly.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting paid and being able to
Good.
actually save up for things like going traveling, saving up for a house,
Yep.
things like that. Yeah, and I think with pole, I want to compete. I want to try and compete this year, both doubles and solo.
You mentioned to me you had aspirations to take first in pole comps.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of like in the back of my mind. Like one day I would like to achieve that. I don't know if it'll be this year, but
maybe
working
it's a
towards
It's a big
it.
year this year, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe next year or the year after, I guess, when you got more time.
Yeah.
And have you thought about what it's going to look like once you do graduate from a time perspective? Because once you're working as like a resident, isn't it fairly full on?
Yeah. I think it will get more.
It'll be at least a 5-day thing, right? Sometimes even more.
Yeah, I think it'll be more full on in the sense that I'll spend more time at the hospital working. But I think there'll also be the decreased mental load of not having to study for exams.
Yeah.
Which I think will have I guess talking to friends that have graduated and are now interns and residents, they find it really takes a mental load off. So I guess it's like a bit of a give and take.
Yeah.
Spend more time there, but you don't have to spend time studying.
Sounds
So-
like overall positive.
I think so.
Yeah.
Just not studying is nice.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if the studying completely ever ends because then, you have to study for like specializing and whatnot. But I guess it then becomes on your own terms.
Yep.
Yep.
Like you say, studying for something you actually want to do rather than
Studying
course
everything. Yeah.
they've given to you. Well, thanks for all that. That was really cool to learn more about you and where you're headed. Like I said, just to sum it up, super hardworking, pretty inspirational person for all the stuff that you're able to achieve and will achieve in the future, I'm sure. If anyone wants to check Marissa out, Marissa J on Instagram, some, as I said, crazy content. So give her a follow and say thanks to Kev for his time as well.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having us again.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Too easy.